Hi there, I'm Watchin, founder and CEO of I Choose the Ladder, and I want to welcome you to the C-Suite Cheat Code, a show where we pull the curtain back on the unwritten rules of corporate America and give out the cheat codes to reconstructing the corporate ladder. First item on our meeting agenda, many of your Black employees do not want to return to the office. Next, we'll head on over to my favorite place in the world, the internet, where I will share my favorite post of the week. Then we'll head on over to the cheat code for a conversation with Octavia Goredema, founder and career coach of 2010 Agency. And lastly, we'll head on over to the hot seat where I will answer your questions. Today, we're talking about being able to take time off. Clearly, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get to it. In case you missed it, there is a little bit of rumbling about going back into the office. I know there is a segment of employees who are really glad to be back with their colleagues, really glad for some normality in their workday, but we're seeing that people of color, specifically Black folks, have anxiety about going back into the office. And if you're someone who doesn't have that anxiety, you might be thinking, well, why is that? Like, we all want to be together, but the we in this situation may not include Black folks. So according to a poll by CBS Money Watch, Black workers said that they do not want to go back into predominantly white spaces, primarily because of having to deal with microaggressions. The last 2 years where they've had to be at home and they can dial into meetings, but the rest of their day is spent just doing the work and not having to decide between correcting somebody for saying something wrong or commenting on something that is a bit offensive or a bit rude or disrespectful, where they can just do the work, meet when they need to meet, but then live within the confines of their home. They've actually decided they like that. And so there's anxiety about being forced to go back into the office. Another reason is that they feel that they are marginalized, right? So they're there and they're tolerated, but they're not necessarily included in the inner workings of the organization. And so there's not really a point of being there. They want to do their work, and then they want to be able to live their lives. And then lastly, Black women in particular are saying that they really enjoy not having to answer questions about their hair or about being the voice for Black folks. And in corporations where there are not a lot of women or a lot of Black folks, there is usually a pressure or a perceived pressure to be the voice every time something Black happens. We talked about this on Instagram when the Will Smith Oscars incident happened, and me telling employers, like, today is not the day to ask your Black employees how they feel, right? If they want to share, they will share it. But those types of situations, people have gotten accustomed to not having to deal with daily, and they're letting y'all know that they don't want to deal with it. So as an employer, what can you do? Be really intentional about how you bring people back into the office. Make sure that you're aware that there is some anxiety about the social aspects of going back into predominantly white spaces for Black folks, and then also have some resources and some flexibility in how people reintegrate back into the workplace. Oh, woo child, this internet piece for today. When I first read it, I really thought it was like a joke. The title is "No One Wants to Work Anymore." And the gist of it is, this is it. It's a manager who is complaining that her best employee quit because she would not let the employee take time off to go to her graduation. So this young person had worked really hard in school while working and had never missed a day, was the highest performer on the team. And when she was ready to graduate from school, asked for the time off and was denied it. And so she handed in her resignation. And so as we think about retaining the employees that we currently have, our high performers, we really have to do a pulse check on what it's going to be required to keep those people and to show them that they're valuable. There has to be some flexibility, like something like a graduation, which is a life milestone, cannot supersede work, right? Well, no, it does supersede work. Go back. We have to be intentional about showing the people who work for us that we care for them as people, not simply numbers in a spreadsheet that then help our bottom line. For something like a life milestone like graduation, it supersedes all of those other things. So as a manager, it's your responsibility to think creatively about how you can fill the gap for that person. You should be thinking about sending them flowers and some type of congratulatory gift, not telling them that they can't make it. So kudos to that employee for deciding that she did not want to stay somewhere that she's not valued. But let this be a lesson to managers. If people are contributing to your organization, contributing to your teams at a high level, and you want to retain them, you have to do more than just tell them that they matter. You have to show them that they matter in your actions. In this cheat code conversation, we talked to Octavia Goredema. She is a career coach. She's also from London, so she talks a little bit about what it's like to work here versus abroad. And she shares a lot of gems on how you can navigate your career change as you decide to switch jobs or to switch companies. So as always, grab your I Choose the Ladder notebook, a pen, and your favorite beverage, and get ready to get these gems. How's it going?
I'm great. How are you today?
Oh, good. I just had a final exam.
Oh my.
Done. Thank goodness.
Congratulations.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm great, except it's cold and wet in Los Angeles today.
What's considered cold?
I don't know how many degrees it is today. It's cold. Not as cold as it is for you.
Cold, or is it cold?
Yeah. It's cold.
I think the first question that I'll ask Octavia is, how did you become a career coach?
Oh, thank you, first of all, Watson, for having me. And hi, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here. And I became a career coach partly by accident and partly by it was meant to be. It's something I've always done without thinking about it. As you mentioned, I've been working for 18 years, and throughout my career, I've always been fortunate to have a circle of women who either helped navigate me, I've helped navigate them, and we've basically helped each other along the various stages in our career. And that nature within me led to the work that I do at 2010, which I've been doing for 8 years now. The name comes from the year 2010, which is when I started it. And I've been producing career content at 2010talent.com. Where I share career advice and career resources with a global community. In terms of the actual coaching, there were two key things that happened. I started working with a coach myself, and it changed my life. It literally changed my life. It was such a powerful experience that I wanted to pay it forward and do it for others. And then secondly, one of the things I always say to my clients is, you don't have to wait for permission to do something. But actually, in this case, an international company reached out to me and asked if I would coach their customers. And that was the first client that I had. So yes, in that case, that was what actually propelled me into being a paid coach. So it was those two factors. I'm really passionate about enabling others. I'm especially passionate about enabling Black women, as you said. I think it's really important for us to come together and help each other move forward.
How does one know when they are ready for a career coach? We all think might need help, but there's different kinds of help. So how does someone know when they're
ready? Yeah. So I personally wish that I had worked with a coach like over a decade ago. Oh my gosh, the things I could have done if I had done this earlier. But in my own personal experience, I wanted to make some big changes. My clients come to me for different reasons, but the common thread is that they're looking to navigate the next step in their career. And even when you're the brightest, most able, perceived to be successful, navigating your career is really hard. It's really, really hard. And we're making mistakes as we go. We don't know. We've never done this before. And when you come out of school, you come out of a framework where everything is laid out for you in terms of what you should be doing next and what you should be working towards. Once you start working, the world is your oyster, but that can also be really hard to figure out how you move forward. And even when you're doing the things that sound right and look right and feel right, things change. I always thought when I was starting in my career that your career would just keep moving up in ascendancy, and some people's careers do that, but more often than not, there are ups and there are downs. And as we get older, we have more expertise under our belts, but we're facing new challenges day in, day out, and especially women of color, which I know is something we're going to get to. So some of my clients are looking to break into their careers or make career changes. Some of them are really happy with what they are doing, but perhaps they want to be earning more and they need help negotiating their salaries. Some of them are facing challenges with co-workers. Some of them just feel unfulfilled, or some of them have a dream that just seems so big that they want some help and support in terms of navigating how they achieve their dreams. And your goals are priceless. They are, they really are. And so investing in yourself, whether it's with a coach or whether it's reading books or listening to a podcast or doing the things that you need to help yourself accelerate is so valuable. So I encourage everyone to find what works best for them. Everyone who is here is already investing in themselves. They're already thinking about what they want to do with their careers and looking for help to move that forward. And I think that's so important.
What are some of the hurdles that you see that we are trying to overcome as it pertains to our careers?
Yeah, oh gosh, so many things. So as you mentioned, I started my career in England, and I've worked here in the States for, gosh, over 10 years now. And I do some work in Africa too. Oh my gosh, it's universal. Africa, UK, here. Well, the numbers to begin with, as many of us already know, Black women earn on average 63 cents on the dollar compared to white men. When it comes to here in the United States and senior leadership positions, 1.5% of senior leadership positions in the private sector, 1.5% are held by Black women. Regardless of whether you work in the public sector or the private sector, as you get more senior, more often you can be the only person in the room. Studies show that Black women are least likely to perhaps have access to senior level leadership in terms of just interaction. So, and that by definition means that you don't perhaps have sponsors that are invested in you in your career. It's really hard. It's really hard. The way I was always raised that you have to work twice as hard. But even when you work twice as hard, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're necessarily going to be treated the same way or have the same opportunities. So yes, there's a lot of things that Black women face across the board. And those can be more nuanced depending on what sector you work in and where you work.
We don't have control over how many Black women get opportunities. We don't have control over, how we're received. So things like how we present ourselves or things like our resumes. What are some small tweaks that you've seen that make a world of difference in terms of the kinds of opportunities that women get access to, Black women specifically?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I actually just wrote an article on how you can enhance your resume for one of the clients that I produce content for. I think the thing that strikes me often when I'm looking at resumes, and it's not necessarily just a gender thing, but it's one thing for us as Black women, Catherine of mine, is really about how we position our accomplishments. And I think it can be so hard when it comes to your resume because you're putting your whole life down on paper, right? And you've got to get that down to 1 page or 2 page. And add on top of that, that maybe you're applying for a job that you want really bad and you might really need that job. And you might be then also thinking, do I know anyone there? And so there's all these other factors that come into play. You can't control those other factors. All you can do is represent your best self so that you have the best possible chance to get that interview. So what I encourage my clients and my readers and the women that participate in my workshops to do is just really spend a lot of time documenting, thinking through, refining your accomplishments. And it's not just for your resume. You should be trying to do this maybe on a monthly, quarterly basis. When your appraisal time is coming around, that's not the only time to start thinking about, okay, well, what have I done for this past year? Because then you're thinking about that under pressure. And you need to be thinking about this as just part of your holistic planning for your career. And when you start to put your accomplishments down on paper for your resume, that's great, but come back to them, look at them, refine them, think about what context do I put that in? I know what it meant to me, but what did it mean to my company? What did it mean to my team? What did it mean to the customers or clients that we work with? And really just don't undersell yourself. And sometimes it's really hard to be objective about yourself. You're just too close to your own career and what you've done, and it's easy to forget things. So ask your peers, get perspective from other people, and don't be afraid to do that. Sometimes it can feel weird to have other people look at your resume, but that can often be the best thing you can do because people who know you professionally can give extra context to things that you could be including.
So when someone comes to you and they're like, I want to go to the next thing, is it because like they aren't holding themselves accountable to the things that they say that they want, or is it just they're not clear on what they're supposed to be doing?
It can be both, and in varying degrees too. If you are coming to me, you already have an idea that there's something that you need or want. You might know exactly what that is, or you might be figuring that out. But we're all human. So I'm a coach. I still work with a coach today. I still do, because it helps keep me accountable to your question. Even when I'm really clear on the goals that I have, it helps me break down those goals. And with my clients, there are very few occasions that you have in your life where you have someone who's 100% invested in you. Hopefully you might have a partner or family members who adore you and will always love you. But in terms of someone who is invested in you with no filter, no judgment, no preconceptions of who you are and what you've done so far, but is just invested in you and what you can bring to the table and what your personal goals are, is a really powerful thing. And those conversations that you have with a coach are based around you and where you want to be and where you want to go, and helping you get where you want to be. Your career is a very personal thing. I've been fortunate that there have been bosses that I've had that have been amazing, as well as ones that perhaps haven't been so great. And that's always impactful. But having that third party that is there in your corner, helping you, and you can be completely transparent with, because it's confidential, it's just for you, is a really powerful thing. And not everyone might have access to that throughout their career. It might be something that you're able to access once or twice or over a period, but it can really push you forward, way forward, than you could ever possibly imagine.
The employee question for today's hot seat. When I request off, my manager always asks me why I need the day off. I don't feel the need to have to tell him I am grown. It's my day off regardless of what I want to or have to do. What are your thoughts on having to inform managers for why I'm taking a day off? First of all, honey, you are grown. And you do not have to provide your manager with the reason while you are taking the day off. That is not, unless that was something that you signed off on in your employee offer letter or something that is an expectation of the company, it is not your obligation to share what could be really personal reasons. And so what I would say is, not in the moment, but outside of that, I would have a conversation with my manager and say, hey, Watchin, I just want some clarity. Whenever I request time off, you always ask for a reason, for the reason that I'm taking the day off. Is there a reason for that, right? Try to get an understanding of what information they're trying to glean, if they're just being nosy. And if that's the case, like, it's over for that. But if there's an actual reason that they're asking, maybe that's work related, sometimes we don't have full visibility into the information that maybe the higher ups have to provide. And so maybe if you have some context, when you submit your request, you can include whatever data they would need if it's for reporting purposes. But if it's just because they're curious, like, no, you do not have to tell people your business. You are absolutely grown. And in today's manager questions, are days requested off just polite ways for employees to tell me they aren't going to be in? I'm always conflicted about telling someone they're needed in the office after they've already requested a day off. Is a write-up an appropriate action? I'm confused. So here's the thing. For most organizations, there is a policy on how much time is required for someone to request time off, right? So if you're going to take the day off, we need, unless it's an emergency, we need a week's notice or 2 weeks notice or whatever the case may be. Look at what your policy is. And as long as the employee is following that policy, there's really no reason for you to write them up, right? Is the time off always going to be convenient? No. But what I've always said is, you'd rather employees take the time off that they need, as opposed to being burnt out at work and doing really bad work, making a lot of mistakes that's going to cause you all to have to do the same things over and over again. Obviously, you understand the busy seasons, right? So maybe you have blackout periods within your department where it's going to be crazy, and so people work around that time and take time off on the tail ends of those. But you cannot write someone up for taking advantage of a perk that is offered to them because of work. Like, they haven't done anything wrong. As long as they're within the corporate policy, you kind of have to go with it, or you just kind of have to go with it. All right, so we are at the end of our episode for today, but you all know that I always like to end with a career affirmation to help you get through the week. And as always, I'm using my I Choose the Ladder career affirmation cards. If you don't already have a set, head on over to choosetheladder.com and grab a deck. So let's see what this message is. But y'all already know, if I don't like it, I'm picking a new one, although that has not happened yet. Let's see what the message is. It's kind of like the universe, God, whatever you believe, knows what we're talking about in the episode. So today's affirmation is, I will no longer sacrifice myself for the grind. And we were just talking about time off. I will no longer sacrifice myself for the grind. And I can get with that. You all know that I love to keep the conversation going. So if you would like to connect with me, you can on Instagram at ICUWatching, or you can connect with the company for career advice at I Choose the Ladder. And until next time, thank you for watching. Meeting adjourned.